Hi again, YouTubers and weavers. Well, you can see the beginnings of putting a warp on the loom. Got some threads there. They're through the rattle up here, hanging off the back down there, but not fully tied on to the back beam yet. New project. I think I told you a month or so ago that I had signed up for Jane Stafford's online guild. And what I'm trying is similar to one of the very first sample projects she did in the guild, something she called asymmetry. And that's because most of the color is on one side of the warp and it's very plain on the other side. She used white, I'm using unbleached natural. She used cotton, I'm using cotton. She made it, I think, 15 or 16 inches wide. I'm making it 26 inches wide, so I've increased the number of threads. She did hers at 18 ends per inch with 8/2 cotton. I'm doing 16 ends per inch with 8/2 cotton, which may seem crazy. Why am I going for less ends per inch? It's because while I'm going to try doing plain weave like she did with cotton on my first piece off of this, I want to then switch to using Boucle, which is kind of like terry cloth thread, and she recommends doing that at 16 ends per inch in the warp. So, and the warp is not Boucle, it's just plain 8/2 cotton. But that's what the project hopefully will be. She recommends a lot of experimenting. And so I'm trying an experiment. I've never used Boucle before. So we shall see how this works. But I thought what I'd do now is zoom in right around here and show you how I'm tying on to the back beam. Jane Stafford, when she does it, she puts all her warp threads in one big bout. And what she was showing on the videos was using a warping mill that goes around and around like this, and you can get a lot on there. My warping board can't handle that full number, and I don't like going with huge bouts. So I tend to make much smaller bouts with about as many threads per bout as I'm going to go with ends per inch. So each of these batches, bouts, whatever you want to call them, contains 16 threads. And because this is the end that's going to go around, it's just looped around this metal rod here. But if I started winding on, we'd get bowing in that. That's not very solid. So I take a piece of cord like this and I lash it around the wooden piece of wind-up back beam, and then around that metal rod where the thread is, and I'm going to do this all the way across. And I do it once between each inch or each bout of threads. And since in my case a bout is about an inch, it usually gives me a pretty even distribution of the lashing back here for tying on. I'll go one more this side of here. And then after I get it all wound here, I'm going to tighten it up just a little bit. And yeah, I know I've got a lot of these colored pieces on there. Those are just choke ties to hold things together. So we'll go through there. Let's take a look over this way. See this white cord? It's looped over the Louette built-in rattle that I don't like to use. It comes down and it's tied with a couple of knots, and it just holds my lead sticks in place up high as I start winding this thing down. So let's tighten up here just a little bit. I want to bring it down so that there's about an inch between this wooden tie-up beam and the metal rod. And I had a lot more than that. That looks like it's pretty even all the way across. So now I'm just going to come around and tie a knot here. And and now you can see I have got this completely tied on. I'm going to go loosen the brake and I'm going to start winding on. Got to remove all these choke ties. Otherwise it won't go around that last piece of lead stick. So you get the idea there. I'll be back in just a second. Okay, time to start winding on. Let's see if I've done this right or if I've got some disasters waiting to happen. Well, the lead sticks are at a bit of an angle, but that shouldn't cause a problem that I can think of. Kept this excess cord out of the way. So let's just keep coming down. These look pretty well evenly spaced. Yeah, that's good. Oh, I see we've got a problem here. Okay. There. I had one of these things wrapped around the metal rod, and that obviously couldn't be. So let's see now if we can do this correctly. Okay, there's a start. Well, you can see I've gotten a bunch of the threads, maybe a little over half through the heddles on this project, and you can kind of see the colors. I chose a little better back here on the back beam where I'm winding it on, but this is one of the putzier parts. I don't mind it too much. Usually I either listen to some music or an audio book while I'm doing this, but I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube's copyright police for having that kind of stuff playing in the background while I'm doing a video here, so don't have any of that on right now. As you can see, I'm not the fastest at this, but that's okay. It doesn't take too long, and I don't mind it. Just if you go slow, you can check your work. So I don't mind that at all. I'm doing batches of 16 simply because I know that that's how I prepared it in the back, and it's eventually going to be 16 ends per inch, so it makes sense to work in the same set of numbers everywhere I go with this. But you can see that I'm making some slow but steady progress in preparing this warp, which I'll get up onto YouTube eventually with this, probably next week, late sometime. I mean, it'll seem like instantly to you guys because you're not going to have to mess with the editing and all the time in between. But I will. So like I said, this is my variation on the Asymmetry project from the Jane Stafford online guild. Season 2, episode 1 or 2, maybe even 3, I don't remember exactly. For those of you who are members of it. And if you're not members of that, it took me a long time to decide to join up with that, but I'm really glad I did. Gotten some excellent ideas from her. So it was money well spent, I think. And I've binge watched the first 2 full seasons, and I'm starting the 3rd season now, and there's some projects there I really want to do too. So, but I'm also trying not to give away any of her secrets. I mean, she's selling through her videos her tips and techniques on not just the technical parts of weaving, but some of the design features and everything else. So I'm kind of showing you guys what I'm doing, but I'm also trying not to redo what she's said, because I don't want to infringe on her classes, and if I can avoid it. I mean, I can show you that I'm using one of her projects as the inspiration for this one, but I'm not going to give you her project. Anyways, you can see what I've been doing. That's one batch out of 26 of threads, and I'm going to turn the camera off for the moment and keep working and put some music on. See you again in a little while. Hey again, YouTubers. I got this project all through the heddles and the reed, and started weaving on it yesterday morning. Again, it's 8-2 Codlin, and I've done one piece out of the batch, and I've loosened the front so that hopefully I can get you to see some of it. It's not easy to see, but you get some idea by looking at it. So let's wind that back up. Just because it just isn't good to leave it like that. There we go. It's not a real tight wind up, but that'll do for now. So that's using the same type of thread, 8/2 Codlin, at 16 ends per inch, both warp and weft. Now, I don't know if it'll show decently in here, but usually I just sew my hems, but on this piece I did hem stitching. So let's see if we can bring you a little closer and show you that. There's the hem stitching. And I've left a couple inches. I probably will trim some of this off back to about 2 inches. And I'm starting the next little bit, and I'm still using the natural Codlin to do that. I want to put in about 1 inch to 1.5 inches there, because I am going to actually sew a hem on this one and not just hem stitch it. So let's where did we end at? We ended at there. We'll have a few Irish pennants on this thing, but I'm not worried about that. And again, it's plain weave, so there's nothing fancy about the weaving. It's the color and design that is the important part of this one. My salvages aren't going to be that great at the very beginning, but I'm not too worried. I think they'll straighten out after I get a little bit farther. 16 ends per inch leaves me a lot of negative space, if you want to call it that, gaps between the threads. So this is a fairly loose piece of weaving. But again, that's perfectly okay for what I want to do with this. That is the next step, and of course I've got to stop weaving and go do that next. But here we go. Let's cut that guy off, tuck the end back in. Lock it in place. There we go with that. So the next thing we're going to do is wind on some more bobbins, but I'm not going to be using this 8/2 Codlin. I'm going to be using, I guess it's still 8/2, but it's the boucle or boucle, or one of those silly French words I can't pronounce. I'll show you. Maurice Broussard's boucle cotton yarn. I'm hoping the camera has decided to focus correctly on that, and that you can see that it's boucle. Can you see how knobbly that is? Is that the right word, knobbly? Anyways, it's got a lot more texture to it. And I've never woven with this stuff before, so this really is an experiment for me. But I'm going to try it. So, and I've got pretty as close as I could get to the same colors as the warp. But this is going to be the weft. And as you know, I prefer to use an electric drill as my bobbin winder. Stuff is definitely bulkier. I didn't get nearly as much wound on as I usually would. I can get a little bit more, but not a lot. I think that's about it. So we're going to just try it with just the white, or the natural, the first time, just to see how this works. So get this boucle. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And then we'll see how this works. I think I want a little bit more tension. Got an interesting, again, knobbly is the best word I've got for it, feel. Whoops, turn you in a little bit closer. That's about as close as I can get you by just adjusting the camera. Interesting feel. I think this is going to be kind of neat when it's done. Obviously, we won't know until I get to that point, but it's got some interesting potential. I should probably beat a little bit harder because this is bulkier, but we'll go with it for now, and I'll tell you more later as I get farther into this.